Hi guys, so today is all about sunflowers. I'm using some acrylic paint that I bought from the range, nailarttutorial, just standard acrylic paint. This one is a cadmium yellow hue for the flower petals. We've got yellow ochre, which is going to be for the inside of the petals. Then we have some burnt umber for the semicircles. And then we've got trusty old black for the outlines. So in preparation, I already have the paints on the paint palette. That's from Palette Me Pretty, if anybody is interested in purchasing one with their own logo on. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the semicircle in the middle of the flower. So give it a quick mark-up of roughly where you want either side and how far out into the nail you want it to be. Bear in mind this is water-based acrylic paint, so if I go wrong at this point, I can actually just wipe it off with water. Bear this in mind though when you get halfway through your design. If you try and wipe it off, you're going to wipe off the whole of the nail and you'll have to start again. So please try and be as careful as possible. You can add to it, so if you don't make them big enough, you can make things bigger, but you won't be able to reduce them because once this is on, it's very difficult to get off, unlike gel paint where you can cure as you go to make sure that you're happy with everything, and then if you're not, you can wipe off the bit that you've just done. Can't do that with this. So as you can see, I didn't think I'd gone out into the nail far enough, so I've just added a little bit extra paint, which you can do. Then what you're going to do is just make sure that it's a really nice solid line, and then you're going to start filling in the rest of the brown semicircle. Okay, so once you're happy with the state of the semicircle that you've created, the next thing we're going to do is start on some of the petals. So go into the bright yellow. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off at the bottom and we're going to do half of a petal. It's obviously going to be off the nail, so just follow the line as it would be and make sure that you've got plenty of paint on there. And then do the same at the top. They don't have to be exactly the same. Nature is not absolutely perfect. Okay, if you're happy with those ones, then the next thing to do is go onto the side and paint the middle one. I find it easiest to do the middle one next because then I can see exactly how much space I've got for the remaining ones. I don't want to be trying to squash them all in. So I find that the middle one just allows the layout to just be a little bit easier to plan. So again, going into the yellow, giving it plenty of paint. And you can see all the lines, but that just helps with the texture of the petal once you're finished. So now you're going to go in and do the middle petal in between these two that you've already created. So you can see my brush actually hits the middle of that space to start creating the petal shape. And then you're going to go in and do the final petal on the other side. Exactly the same thing. Hit the middle of the space and create your petal shape. So now what I'm doing is mixing the slightly darker colour to go in the middle of these petals. So I used the two different yellows, mixing them together to create a slightly darker version of the bright yellow. It doesn't need to be an awful lot darker, but just as long as it gives the petal a bit of depth. So we're going to do one line down either side and one in the middle. So it's just literally 3 lines on each of the petals, just to give it a little bit of depth. Now I wasn't overly happy with that particular colour, so I went into the darker colour just to give it a little bit more of a darker shade to go on there. This is entirely up to you what colour you want to put on. If you like it very, very subtle, you don't need an awful lot of the darker colour. But as you can see, when I put this on, just that little bit darker has made a bit more difference. So again, one side in the middle and then the other side. Nice and simple, doesn't have to be perfect. So the next bit we're going to do is some nice little dotty bits on the brown. So again, they don't have to be perfect, and you can use either the lighter yellow or the darker yellow or a mixture of the two to just make a little bit of detailing on this brown section here. So I haven't actually been using any water on any of the other colours because I like the colour to be really thick and solid. Whereas when we're using the black, because we're using it for an outline, we're going to need to add a little bit of water. So that's what I'm doing there. Just trying to get the paint to move a little bit more freely by adding a little bit of water. And then what we're going to do is make sure that the brush is fully coated, but that there are no lumpy bits of paint. You don't want a big ball at the end, because when you put your paintbrush down, you're going to have a big splodge at one end, and we don't want that. So if you can see that, there's plenty of paint on there, but there's no big lumpy bit. So what we're going to do first is I'm just going to go around the outside of the brown semicircle. So if it wasn't quite tidy enough, you can actually tidy it up now. Beautiful. Okay, so now we're going to do the outside of these. So what you're going to do is you're going to put more pressure on at the base where the brown is, and then you're going to lift up as you get towards the end. So if you can see, there's less pressure towards the end, and I'm almost flicking off, so it almost looks like a sketched look. Again, not too much in the way of lumpy bumpy bits on the paint. Just trying to get the camera to work properly. So again, plenty, well, not plenty, but enough pressure at the beginning, and then lifting it up as you get towards the end of the petal. Oh dear, I am out of focus a little bit. Such is my life. And then what you're going to do is go back in, and almost the same sort of design where you did the slightly darker lines, you're going to go over with the black. So just 3 very simple lines. You don't need an awful lot of paint on your brush at this point, because it's not, you don't want them really, really thick, heavy lines. So there you go. That is the finished design. And then what you're going to need to do is actually top coat it. Now, because this is acrylic paint, it won't dry for for a few minutes. But for the purpose of this video, this is a completed one that is now top coated. I hope you enjoy.